Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Hey, welcome to this episode of the Note Closers Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here today. Today's episode, I want to dive into some common sense underwriting. And I want to let me preface this a little bit. If you've ever attended one of our 3-day workshops or you've been to one of our trainings, you know that we usually like to provide a due diligence spreadsheet or a document to go through things. We've updated and edited that over the years. We updated that for our most recent workshop here in Austin. Back last month, we have it updated in for the manual for those attending the upcoming virtual workshop the week after Easter, online via Zoom. So I encourage you to check it out at nobuyfordommies.com. But we've been marketing some assets for sale lately. We've been getting some lists in that we market, stuff that we make offers on. And I want to share this story. We had an investor that saw us post these 72 notes. They were 29 non-performing, and the rest, 43, were performing notes. And this guy's reached out to me for tapes before. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll share the list with you. Take a look at it. And he comes back, oh, I'm going to make an offer. Well, first of all, let me preface this before that. I said, well, okay, you've got your tape. Bids are due by Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Basically, you got 48 hours. Now, it does not take long to make offers on non-performing notes, especially when you've only got 29. Now, these 29, there were a mixed bag of some very low balances. There's a couple that were under 5,000, some that were under 20,000, some that were under 100,000, and a few that were over $150,000 assets. Okay, so it was a mixed bag of these 29 non-performing. So this guy sends me a bid almost immediately for the low, just the non-performing stuff, which is completely allowed. He goes, I'll offer 400 grand for just the non-performing. I'm like, okay. I'm going to need loan level bids. Now, what does loan level bids mean? That means if you're going to make offers on 29 assets, I need 29 individual bids. Now, if he's going to bid 400,000, that's fine, but I need to know how that's broken up. Well, the guy responded back, well, what do you want me to do? Make it a percentage of each one across each one? It's like, that was a red flag. I'm like, no. Because when we request loan level bids, when a seller is looking at what a buyer is submitting, he's going to want to know how John's bid matches up with Hector's bids, or how Boyd's bid matches up with Hector. Kind of get an idea who's the highest and best. And I was a little irritated when I saw the 400,000 across the board, because I immediately reached back and they came back with that comment, and then there were crickets. So I reached out with an email, hey, I'm going to need loan level bids. No response. I picked up the phone and called, said, hey, I'm going to need loan level bids. Well, then I get a crappy response the following day. Well, we did not have time to submit loan level bids. We're interested in buying the whole pool. And I'm like, you're not following me on that. And that's a red flag. Like, this guy will never get another tape from me again. All right. Because when you say one thing, well, I'm an active investor, been buying for 10, 15 years. Okay. But then you do something like that. That's a stupid thing. Don't do that. Okay. Don't be that a-hole. Okay. Don't be that guy who just wants to submit low balance bids. You're not going to be taken seriously. All right. Now, look, I can understand making some low ball bids on stuff that's got like low balance, under 20,000, something you only use your IRA. You want to make sure after servicing costs, you're getting a good. I can completely understand it. But to tell you how out of whack these bids were, the unpaid balance on these 29 assets came to 1.5 million. Okay. That's the unpaid balance. So bidding at 400,000 is about 25 cents of the dollar. Now, I can understand that on low balance bids, under 5, under 10. But there were 4 assets on those bids alone, the non-performing side, my bids were over 400,000. Okay. So way out of whack. All right. And then, of course, I told the guy, not to send it out. Well, suddenly I get some, well, he shares lists with me and I want to make offers. I didn't even justify it with a response back. So if you're watching this and you're not a WCN crew member, you need to get signed up to be in the WCN crews for $97 a month so you get access to these tapes. You're not waiting to the last minute to get these. If you're in the WCN crew, great, make some offers. If you have schedule and curious about how to make an offer or how to submit a bid, don't wait around to do so. It's better to get making more bids and going from there. Now, I did have somebody reach out to me who I know didn't have any money. He's like, I'm going to make bids on all this. I'm like, no. I know you don't have the funds to fund those, and that's okay. Let's make some offers and stuff that you, because I'm not going to risk my relationship with a hedge fund. Okay. I'm not going to risk my relationship with a hedge fund when I know you don't have funds to fund the stuff and you submit on the whole tape. It just doesn't work that way. Let's pick out 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. And as we like to do, guys, we've got some lists that are uploaded there. We've got a list of 16 notes in there right now that people can submit bids for. Use those assets to help you build and reach out to private investors and go from there. If you understand, and if you don't understand how you're going to fund these deals, then book a phone call. My schedule at talkwithscottcarson.com. And I'm glad to walk you through. I want you to make offers. I want you to get deals funded, but you got to be a little more realistic on it. Like I got to give Cal a hard time because Cal used to bid on 50 assets at a time on a tape. I'm like, Cal, I get these, but you told me yesterday you had 0 funding lined up or whatever it was. And goes a while back because Cal has funding right now. I need you to be a little bit more realistic on the possibility of getting some of these. So bid on 5, 10, not the whole tape. Okay. Because that's a lot of work. You come in and you're like, oh my God, I can't close on 10 of these, or if my bids are all accepted, what am I gonna do? Well, yeah, you're gonna go through due diligence. Like, I'm not opposed to you bidding on stuff, but let's just be realistic and make sure you're ready to rock and roll. Okay. And when it comes to stuff that you're gonna bid on, this episode is common sense kind of underwriting. I mean, in a very easy way of looking at things. I think we get so bogged down as note investors looking at spreadsheets and making sure our ROI calculators and all the columns make sense. There are some deals you're not going to even waste your time on. Okay. And here's the things that we like to say, don't waste your time on. These are the ultimate common sense underwriting tactics to keep in mind. Okay. First and foremost, the number one common sense thing is when you're looking at assets, if you don't know where the city is and you see that the city is so small you don't recognize it, don't bid on it. When you're starting off, don't bid on small ass cities that have like 500 or 1,000 people. The obvious matter is to stay in cities where there's a decent population, where there's vendors, realtors, buyers, investors to help you, fix and flippers, whatever. People go knock on doors, it didn't cost you extra. So don't buy in a city that you don't want to own it. And never, when you're looking at the asset, don't buy an asset you don't want to end up owning. Okay. Now, I get it. Some people are out there thinking, well, Scott, I buy performing notes. I don't mind buying performing. That's great. I'm not talking to you. If you're buying non-performing assets where somebody hasn't paid, and there's a chance that you could take the asset back in foreclosure or have to sell the asset off, don't buy the asset if you don't want to end up owning it. All right. I've been on some assets here in Texas, down in the valley, right? ROIs. But when I looked at the asset, it was a POS. Okay. It needed work. It would take a lot to fix it up. I didn't want to own that asset. Now, in Ohio, there's some assets in Ohio that I bid on. They're not, would I live in those houses? Yeah, I could live in my house if I lived there in Ohio. I wouldn't live in that type of house here in Austin if the house was magically transferred next door. I'd rather live in the house I'm in, right? But I wouldn't mind owning that asset because it falls in line with what's in that neighborhood. Okay. An older house, 2-story house, decent looking house. I bought plenty of those. I call them like just bread and butter assets. Okay. Bread and potato, meat and potato assets, whatever you want to call it. Okay. But the thing is, like I said, number one, don't buy an asset you don't want to end up owning. Okay. If it's a non-performing note, don't buy that you want to end up owning. That should be one of your number one things. I mean, I know that there's people that buy land notes. They like the cash flow. They don't mind owning the land if they end up taking it back or the bar stops paying. By all means, that's great. But that's probably the number one due diligence, common sense underwriting thing. If you don't like the asset and don't want to end up owning it and it's a non-performing note, don't bid on it, don't buy it. Okay. 2, if it's got low monthly cash flow, and this is why we say stay above, buy notes that have a higher cash flow, 250 or above. If you're using your own funds, okay, buy whatever you want to buy. But realize that if it's a non-performing note, you're going to have a higher cost in servicing. So $250 a month in P&I payments, it may not be bad for your IRA or something like that. But if you've got to fork out $90, $95 a month, it's not going to be a lot of profit. And it's be a pain in the ass. And you're going to deal with that with a servicing company. They got to get paid for their time. They're valuable to you. Okay. So start looking at that monthly cash flow. Is it going to be worth your time? Now, if you're using other people's money, you got to definitely make sure it's worth your time, because you're going to have to pay off your underlying debt when you pay. So start inching those things up. All right. Inching those things by meaning going after higher payments, $300, $400, $500 a month at a minimum, depending on what you're buying, and going from there. Okay. Another thing that's kind of common sense, if you're looking at a note and it's in the second half of the payment series, so like I could say it's a 30-year mortgage and 15 years is already gone, and then they're the second half, the twilight, you're going to end up having a lot more principal paid down versus interest. So you always got to make sure that you're buying it at a premium where you've got several years of difference between what's owed and what you invest in or what you borrow from an investor. So like we've got a student right now, they bought a note. They've got a performing contract for D. They're trying to sell it at like 95 cents on the dollar. And I'm like, why are you trying to sell it at 95? Well, we borrowed more than what we paid for it. So like the numbers, I think they paid like 35 for it. Well, they borrowed 50 when the balance was like 60. I'm like, okay, well, it's been paid down now. Now the borrower only owes like 52, and they're still trying to get 50 to pay off their investor. I'm like, look, that's too skinny. Somebody's not going to pay 50 for it because there's no room for profit for them. I have an investor who wants to pay 47. Well, that's going to require them to come out of pocket $3,000 to make their investor whole. Well, they pulled 10 or 12 grand out. You're going to have to do that plus cash flow along the way. So that's the thing. We get so bogged down sometimes in numbers. We had a student years ago who would buy non-performing stuff and then turn around and try to sell those notes at 75, 80 cents on the dollar when they're non-performing. I'm like, there's no meat on the bone. Well, I got to make my $5,000 or I got to make my 12 grand or whatever it is. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Your number is dictating your sales price, but you're not leaving it in. Yes, you could make $5,000 on this, but you're not going to make $8,000. Okay. So that's the thing. Looking at the condition of the property, exterior. Yes, we're looking at Zillow, Trulia online photos, and we're going to be outdated. Okay. Great. But when you get a BPO order or you get an O&E order, look at it, makes sense. Common sense. Yes, you may not know what you're looking at. So book a call with talkwithscottcarson.com. I'll walk you through it. We were just looking at a deal on Tampa that one of our buddies, Phil Brodeur, and we just did a podcast episode with Phil. I think it comes out tomorrow. If you want to listen to it, Phil's from Canada. And he made an offer on this note in Tampa. And it's a first lien. He got a pretty good offering on the price. It's not on a huge high rise, so it's not affected by a lot of the HOA special assessment stuff. But it looks like the HOA foreclosed subject to the first lien holder. So it's got a few extra wrinkles with that in the foreclosure process and stuff like that. And he's like, I don't want to go through back all this forth. I'm like, that's completely fine. You don't have to go back and forth with a seller. Just have it with your attorney. Here's the aspects. He goes, no, I don't really want to deal with it. It's going to be too much of a pain in the ass. I like a little bit simpler deal where I get the borrower back on track. I'm like, well, there's no borrower on this. Technically, the borrower is the HOA or whoever the HOA quit claimed the deal to. Because now I don't want to deal with it. I'm like, that's fine. Then let's move on. And that's the thing. Don't fall in love with these deals. I used to always joke that people would get that OTSC syndrome. Oh, that's so cute, right? Oh, that's so cute syndrome. When they see a property that's got a white picket fence or it's this beautiful house, that's great. But take the emotion out of it. Yes, it's important if it's a nice looking house. It's important if there's some emotional equity with a flag or landscaping or plants or kid toys outside. That's a good thing. Common sense underwriting says, hey, there's somebody in there that wants to stay in the house. But don't you fall in love with that asset. Fall in love with the numbers, but understand, does it make sense to buy that asset when you start seeing it, a borrower's drag things out? Like one thing when I look at see what the borrower's doing. Okay. If it's a non-performing note and the borrower's an attorney, I don't usually want to buy that note because they will drag things out through delays and BKs and TROs and stuff like that. So it's not worth my time to drag that out. Okay. It's also important too to look at, if you're looking to buy your first note or to fund your first note transaction, stuff like that, get something that's going to be a pretty easy base hit. Yeah, maybe it's bringing in 16% so you can pay your investor 8%. Or if it's going to bring in 16 or 17% and you get an investor that wants to make 10%, pay them 10 to get something in, to get that first deal in. Okay. You can always, as you get better at what you do, you can always go back in and refinance out your investor with cheaper money. All right. And the more you talk to people, the easier it's going to be. Now, you're not going to go fund your deal with a hard money loan, a hard money lender, stuff like that. You have to understand when you're talking to people too, where's the money coming from? Is it coming from your self-directed IRA account? Is it coming from checking? Is it coming from a trading account like Schwab? Well, if it's like with Schwab or A.G. Edwards, that money's got to be moved into a self-directed IRA. So I understand there's a lot of moving parts with no investing. This is not meant to be difficult, ladies and gentlemen, but you got to realize it's 2025. Submitting an offer at 25% of the unpaid balance without giving loan level pricing is just not accepted these days. Okay. If you want lowball offers and lowball assets, then go spend your time on some of the crappy platforms that are out there. Okay. That's fine. You can bid on lowball assets, but don't waste somebody's time who's moving decent assets. And if you want to be a decent borrower, or not a borrower, but a buyer of notes, and you want to have lists sent to you, then don't submit in stupid bids. I don't know who teaches that. I don't. Okay. I have no qualm submitting people submitting, a chunk of offers and knowing that they may end up have to whittle those down. But don't send in a low ball offer just because you're scared to make an offer, or you only want to be that person that buys crap. Well, guess what? Go buy crap somewhere else. Don't waste people's time who are legitimate buyers on legitimate assets. If you can't take the time to submit in a loan level pricing offering, don't submit your offering. If the seller's asking for a tape offering, that's a different story. But most of you guys out there aren't going to be bidding on 50 to 100 assets or more. Okay. And that's understandable. But that's the great thing about this note business, is that you get to buy on crumbs. We had a reporter reach out to us over the weekend talking about where the market's at. And he's picking my brain on how we got into this business and how note investors have evolved, because really it wasn't a mainstream investing approach prior to 2008. I said, well, look, as things have changed and as markets have changed, you've had investment companies and bigger funds that bought portfolios from banks and lenders and sold those portfolios off or cut them up. They buy 50 million, so they cut them up into 5 pools of 10 million. And there's chunks in all those assets that they want, the premium assets, stuff like that. And there's always like the bottom bit of that tape that they sell off to somebody else. It may not have value to them because they may value those assets at zero, but it does have value to us mainstream investors who are looking at opportunities. And I guess we kind of live on the crumbs. Okay. I kind of apply that to, if you ever watched that movie with the Teller Kid and was it War Dogs? A couple guys out of Miami buying and selling ammunition and guns to the U.S. military during the Gulf War. They talk about living on crumbs. There's all these contracts that the government lets slide through that are small, that guys like them step in and buy these 50 Berettas or 100 Berettas and ship them off the United States Army military on these small contracts. That's kind of us. We're living on crumbs, but the crumbs are nice. You can make a great living on buying crumbs. And that's my next thing. I've been getting so many phone calls about people talking about wholesaling deals or wholesaling notes because they don't have any capital. They're going to go out and wholesale. I'm like, well, if you're going to wholesale, what are you going to do to find funding or find buyers? You got to go out networking. That means going to real estate clubs and expos. You should be doing that anyway in a lot of cases. Your local networking groups, local IRA companies, and they have networking. And 2, you're going to have the market. Well, guess what? Those 2 same things are what you do to raise capital. So it makes more sense for you to do that to raise capital for your own investment versus going out and being a waiter for the people out there. And I get it. We don't want to have any type of connections. We don't want to have any investment. We don't want to have an investment in time into a deal. If it doesn't happen, I don't want to be held responsible. But guess what? You're not really investing. If you're just looking to flip, wholesale, I get it. If you got to make some money and stuff like that, I get it. But honestly, if your biggest hurdle is that 6 to 8 inches between ears here, and that you don't want to raise capital, then go do something else. Go wholesale regular real estate. Go wholesale land, whatever you want to do. Note investing. If you want to be a good wholesaler when it comes to note investing, you've got to understand what the deal holds. Understand, is this a good deal? Is this a bad deal? More than just what's on the spreadsheet. Okay, like I got in this tape of 2, I call them multifamily loans that are performing, they're 1-year loans that are now matured. They're still performing. But when I looked at it, it's a 20-unit hotel on Daytona Beach. It looks like a crack hotel. And then there's a 13-unit apartment complex. It looks like a bunch of these little bungalows in Daytona Beach. Well, now the 13-unit bungalow in Fort Lauderdale looks much more desirable than the 20 or 28-unit hotel there on Daytona Beach. It looks like it's seen out something out of freaking Scarface. All right. The Cubans with the cocaine and the chainsaws. You know what I mean? Like I said, that the one on the beach, it doesn't look good. I don't necessarily want to own it. It's going to be more of a pain in the ass. The 13-unit duplex, that makes more sense as a true rental versus a hotel. Okay. it's something that I wouldn't mind owning. The hotel and more work than it's worth. Okay. That's what you also realize, ladies and gentlemen, is if you're going to be buying assets, don't be buying stuff that you're going to have to rehab. That if you have to take back in foreclosure, you're not prepared to do that. All right. And look, you're not going to learn this business overnight. It takes some time. You're going to make some offers. But that's why I always tell you guys, hey, feel free to book a phone call. Like I know Albert, we're jumping on a call, I think tomorrow, going through some assets I see on here this morning. Good morning. Hope you had a good weekend. Cord, Vernon, as you guys have questions and others that are on here, if you're making offers and want or haven't made an offer yet, you got to do so at some point. You got to get off that learning circle and to make some offers and learn as you go. And that's the great thing about our one-on-one coach we love is we're going to force you to make offers and get things rock and roll. All right. But anyway, when it comes back to common sense underwriting, don't make a lowball offer, just make a lowball offer. If you can't follow instructions of the seller, they're not going to take your bid seriously. Don't bid on something that you don't want to, check taxes. It takes a second or two to make a phone call, see what proper taxes are owed. And like I said, just because the numbers look good on a spreadsheet doesn't necessarily mean it's a great asset. Look at it. And like I said, if you wouldn't want to end up taking that asset back, don't buy it. Don't bid on it. Go on to something else and make sure you're buying something with a balance, where the payments remaining, or the monthly P&I makes sense for you. Common sense underwriting will keep you out of a lot of bad and skinny deals versus just running numbers on a spreadsheet. Understand what you're doing. Look at what you're buying. Take a second to look at the deal. One of the most valuable things that I've ever done was when I first got started. I had an office, probably about 10 minutes from here. And I love this office because we subletted this one room from this continuing education company that did continuing education and licensing for like retirement communities or retirement homes, stuff like that for the elderly. And they started going things doing virtually back in the day. Well, they had this meeting space with tables and chairs, and we hosted our first class there. But on all four sides, they had these big dry erase boards. And I would pick, when I would get deals in, I would literally go to that dry erase board. I wouldn't jump on Excel. A little bit, but I would look at it. Hey, how many units are this? A lot of these are multi-family loans. So what's the unit? I would literally go through underwriting. What do I see that makes sense? How much is back out? Is it a good asset? What do I see about the borrower? Those are the things that, it's kind of that whole difference. Remember taking math classes where they would have a story and you'd have to pull the numbers out of that story to solve that math problem versus just numbers. And some people are good at the stories and the numbers and others are just good at the numbers. Well, I was really good at the stories, so I could always pull those numbers out. What's the numbers you need to take a look at? And that's where you find some great deals. It's also where you avoid buying deals that turn into duds that end up costing you more money and a bigger pain in the ass. But you're going to learn more from making your first offer, getting your first offer accepted. And that's why I always said, listen, guys, if you need to get your first offer accepted, reach out to me. We're glad to help you do that. We've probably got a couple of deals for you. There's like I said, there's 16 notes in there. I think about half of them are accepted, but the other half are still available. It's an opportunity for you to bid some performing stuff that could be good yields for you, even some non-performing stuff as well too for you. Because I know the seller's motivated, but he's not going to let things go. And when you have pricing, he's giving me pricing expectations somewhere between 72 and 80 cents on the dollar for the performing. The non-performing is a little bit more flexible on. Very easy to book things on my calendar. Talkwithscottcarson.com. Talkwithscottcarson.com. That'll take you to my schedule to book a phone call with me. I will be out of town next week, actually. So we will not have a coaching call on Monday, but I'll be out of town. And that's one thing I'm really excited about. No, I'm not going to a no conference. I'm going to a marketing and podcast convention because one of the most valuable things I've learned in my business as a real estate investor for 20 years. Yes, the REI expos, the Think Realty events, the Noteworthy, the DMEs are not bad to go to for networking. But if I'm going to spend time away from my friends and family, my bed, my good food, my animals, and my better half, it's got to be worth my time. And I want to go make sure that I walk away with nuggets that I can apply to my business. And I've always got more out of marketing conferences than I have about note investing. So I'm going to Chicago, excited about this event for 3-4 days. I'll probably come back with 5 or 6 nuggets that I'll apply immediately to my business and help me raise capital or find more deals. And that's my big goal with that aspect of things. No, I'm not going to Nashville for DME when they're only going to have 125 to maybe 200 people, it's not worth me going for that, when I know most everybody else is out there. Now, I'm a little different than most of you, but I know that if I look to see who the speakers are, that things I can connect with them online, and almost always reached out to them ahead of time and go from there. Or I've heard them speak a million times and they're not changing anything. Or the topic matter of the panels just don't make sense. I hate going where there's just panels and panels and panels. You don't really learn anything in those sessions. So anyway, common sense underwriting, guys. Like I said, don't buy something you don't want to own. Follow instructions and look at the deal. Is it truly a deal that you want to own long-term for you, or is it a dud if something goes wrong? So go out, take some action. Feel free to book a call with me at talkwithscottcarson.com. Don't forget to get signed up for our next upcoming workshop, April 25th to the 27th, I believe, online via Zoom. And you can get signed up for that at notebuyingfordummies.com. Oh, also one other thing. If you're looking to order BPOs and O&Es, I know that we've been a huge fan of Baldwin Advisory Group, and Dickie's going through things right now with his health. Feel free, you can still order your BPOs and O&Es directly on our website. We just have buttons on there. If you go to our vendors on weclosenotes.com, let me pull this up. I should be able to share it with you guys. Boom, 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 boom. Where is it here? Let me pull this up here for you. Yeah, so there we go. So if you go to our website, weclosenotes.com, and go to our vendor tab across the top, you'll see, trusted partners, vendors here at the top. Vendors. You'll see some of these buttons. So you can literally click on, now about half of these are buttons that are working, the other half are still being edited and tweaked up, but the order your BPO button, if you click on it, it'll take you to a simple page for you to fill out your BPO, your valuation order. Just fill that out. We'll make sure and get that taken care of. If you're ordering multiple BPOs or valuations, just upload the spreadsheet with all the information on it. Same thing, if you need to order an O&E report, click there and submit the information for your O&E report. We're glad to help you get those things processed. This may be a permanent thing if Dickie doesn't get back to where he's going, or if it does, it may just be a temporary thing. But we want to make sure that our students and clients were taken care of. And so we've got some sources for you guys to be able to order this. So if you fill out the information, it'll get an order request into me and my team, and we'll make sure to get your order processed in a timely fashion for you. So you're not sitting around waiting around for something, not knowing if it's going to get ordered or not. So glad to help you out there, guys. Not going to cost you anything extra as well. So go out there, take advantage of that stuff, get your BPOs, your O&Es, and some other stuff ordered. I think the other buttons right now are if you're selling a note, you have a note for sale, you can go to sell your note here. Oh, nope, that button will be updated later today. But I'll give you a bit of an idea. So like you can order collateral review. We've got a third-party collateral review client. We'll review your collaterals, make sure it's complete, tell you what needs to be fixed, stuff like that. If you need to order property preservation, that means getting a locksmith, a winterization, somebody to secure properties, let me know. There's a whole variety of different things you can do in that. That button will be up probably by Friday. If you're looking to start a self-directed IRA, you can go there. We'll make sure and refer you out to our list of SDIRA investors for you. If you need to order skip traces, we can order those right here for you individually. We've got a bulk account with one of our clients. Sell your note there. Click on that. It'll help you fill out all your information on owner financing notes or non-performing or institutional note you're selling. If you're looking to order a list of IRA investors, we have a source that can help you in buying a list of IRA investors in your county or city all across the United States. Now, they're not necessarily true self-directed IRA investors, but it's a list of IRA investors that you can market to. If you need help with a virtual assistant, you can order there. If you need to start an LLC, create an LLC for your entity, you can click on that, fill it out. We'll make sure and get Laughlin Associates over there to take care of it. So check it out there, guys. Our vendor network is here to help you with your underwriting, help you make sure you're buying a deal and not a dud, and help you take your business to the next level. So go out, take some action, buddy, and we'll see you at the top. Thanks, everybody.